Hello, good evening. Welcome to Black Hippie Lounge. I'm your host, Chanel, and today is Sunday, May 15th. And I hope that you all had a great week. I had a pretty busy week, and it's going to be busy for me for like the next couple of weeks. So I definitely will do my best to try to record. I might have to pre-record. It's official. I'm graduating. For those who have been like sticking with me throughout these episodes and listening, I got my grade back for the paper. Your girl got a 49.5 out of 50. Smart, okay? And so I got an A on the paper. I got an A in the class. I'm graduating. And actually, I just realized, it's funny because I mean, I'm smart, you know what I mean? Like, I'm book smart and, common sense and just like, I can navigate through things, but I've never been the type of student that like, I gotta get A's, like I was never like that. In middle school, I wasn't definitely like I was a horrible student in middle school. I'm not even gonna lie. My mom can tell you, like, I stayed having meetings with the teachers and my mom because I just wasn't doing my work, but that's another story. And then in high school, I would say my first like 2 year, like freshman, sophomore year, I made sure I passed my classes, but I was never like, I got to get honor roll and all that stuff. And then I would say junior year when I went, my mom sent me on the Black college tour. And that opened my eyes to, this idea that Black people do go to college. There's a whole school of Black people going to college and the importance of college. And from there, when I came back, I made it a goal to start getting A's and B's, and I did for like a semester. Well, a semester or two. I know I got honor roll one time, and then after that I was like, still making sure I did really well my senior year, the first half of senior year, and so I can get into college. And then once I got into colleges, the last semester, I still kind of was just like, all right, I'm graduating, whatever. Like, I made sure I still passed my classes, but I wasn't as strenuous. But my point is that when I got to college, again, I wasn't really an A student, you know what I mean? I just kind of was just going through the motions and, making sure I passed. But I didn't really focus on trying to get all these great grades. And so when I decided to go to grad school, I definitely decided that if I'm going to do it, I'm going to pay out of pocket. I've said that a couple of times on the episode, and I've stuck to that promise. I think one semester did get help from my grandmother, so definitely appreciative of that. She helped me pay for one class. And then another time I got a scholarship, like a grant. I got a grant for one class. So definitely that was helpful. But overall, I paid for my way through grad school. And then the other promise I said was I was going to get all A's. And I definitely stuck to that, except for one class. He gave me a B+. I'm not even going to talk about it, but whatever. He was doing too much with that. Anyway, so long story short, I've kept a good GPA. So my teacher, he just submitted the grades on Friday, so they haven't like tallied up everything, like, you know what I mean? Like on your transcript, but before that I had a 3.7. So I'm assuming I'm going to be having like a 3. It's not going to be a 4.0. I don't think it's going to be like a 3 point something. Right. So anyway, long story short, I found out when I bought my cap and gown, remember I bought that late, but I got it. We're good with that. They sent me like all these stuff with it. Like in one of the things they sent was a gold tassel. So long story short, the other day I found out that means that I'm graduating with honors. I didn't even know. I mean, I knew I had a good GPA, but I didn't even know I was graduating with honors. And it's like, I never, again, like I said, I wasn't that student who, I've got to be the valedictorian or whatever, you know what I'm saying? I was just like, yo, as long as I'm getting out of this, I'm good. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a dummy. I do what I got to do, but I'm not going to sweat it, And so, it's just kind of cool to stick to the promise that I made to myself to not only pay for school, but do well throughout it. This was despite all the stuff that happened to me. I still never let myself get below, a grade level. So, or a GPA, whatever. So anyway, I lost my train of thought what I was trying to go with that. But so I'm graduating. Long story short. So next Sunday I graduate, and then after that I got a couple trips and stuff like that planned. So I'm gonna try to do my best to try to record as many episodes as I can throughout that time, but bear with me if not, because it is like holiday time. It's gonna be Memorial Day weekend, and I'm also going away for work purposes, and then after that I'm going to Philly the following weekend. So I'll do my best. If not, I'm definitely thinking about doing a live, Instagram live, and then also a TikTok live, because I am utilizing TikTok. I'm trying to utilize it. I definitely appreciate so far the love that I've gotten on TikTok. I've seen my numbers increase for the podcast, so I'm definitely gonna stick with it. And if you haven't already and you have TikTok, follow me on TikTok at Black Hippie Lounge. So I'll definitely appreciate it. Follow me on Instagram as well at Black Hippie Lounge. And so today I want to talk about a topic. I feel like it would only make sense for me to talk about it, considering this is a podcast that is focused on Black healthcare. I do say it is on Black mental health, but I also include health as well, just any forms of health. It doesn't have to be just for Black people, the information that I'm going to give, but my focus is Black people. So just to be able to give Black communities and listeners more information regarding their health and the things that they might need to know. So for those who are familiar with and maybe not, familiar with what's going on, that right now there's a lot going on revolving abortion laws and just, what women can do with our bodies. And it's quite interesting that the people that are trying to decide these things are older white men who don't have vaginas, who can't get pregnant, so it's it is what it is. It's America. That's all that equates to. Good old America, because stay trying to tell somebody what they need to do instead of worrying about yourself, right? So that's what this episode will be called. Worry about yourself. Abortion is none of your business, okay? So we're going to get into it. So this will be an episode where I'm definitely going to spit out a lot of research information, but also give my opinion on things. But I just wanted to share what I found with research and, inform someone on what's going on if you're not familiar with what's going on, right? So currently, I will be reading off notes too, which usually I don't do. I feel like I usually do freestyle, but for this, I definitely want to make sure I'm giving the information. So before I get into it, if you don't know, I'm completing my master's in healthcare administration, and I actually wrote my paper on the disparities between Black and white women in childbirth and maternal health. And that's just been a really big focus for me and interest for me, is the way at which Black women are treated within healthcare. I'm very much a big advocate of, Black women and men being able to go to doctors that look like them and having people look out for them in their health, right? Because for years, centuries, it's just been within our history that when it comes to healthcare, we as a race tend to not be able to trust the healthcare system and those people who work within healthcare. Obviously, every doctor isn't bad, and every, healthcare provider is out to get you, but history also shows that they haven't also been really having our backs like that, right? And so a lot of, if you think about that Tuskegee experiment alone, basically killing off a bunch of Black people, and exposing them to a deadly disease. So And that plus other things, you think about the AIDS epidemic and all those other things that have gone on. So it's a long history within the United States of just basically not treating Black people the way that we should be treated. And that's just within healthcare. I'm not even going to get into everything else because you already know. So what my focus of going to school and what I want to do is I want to have, just from being as a woman, not really growing up having the experience of having a black female doctor for not maternity, but for women's health, a gynecologist. It's like you have to do a mad hunt to find a Black gynecologist. And for me, I prefer to have a Black doctor for every form of healthcare, but especially gynecology, just because I feel that that makes me most comfortable being with a woman who looks like me, who has the same, maybe not the same exact body as me, but would be able to understand my body type and, how things interfere with that, or why certain things might happen to me that might not happen to a white woman my age as well, right? So, and it's just, I don't know, it's just, for me, it's just a comfort level. I feel always way more relaxed and more comfortable going to those appointments when I have a doctor that is Black. And so I want to open a clinic that can staff, it's all Black and brown staff, to have like a women's maternal health clinic. So the clinic would kind of be not just for, childbirth or like providing maternity services, like, helping with deliveries. So like midwives and doulas, but also just like women's health in general, like pre-pregnancy things, like making sure that that women have access to birth control if that's something that they choose. Even though I'm not going to get into it, but my ideas on birth control, it's a tough topic to discuss because there's so many different factors that there are benefits to it, but there's also a lot of like things that it can do wrong to your body. But that's not what the topic is today. So my idea for the staffing of that health center would just be all focused on Black women's health and being a resource, sort of like a plan, okay, if you're familiar with Planned Parenthood, how, they're supposed to give out like condoms and give information to people about how to prevent pregnancy, but also how to take care of yourself, during pregnancy. So my idea for my health center would be, again, all Black staff, and I want to provide services for pre-pregnancy care, during your pregnancy, and then after your pregnancy as well. And the paper that I just did was, again, like I said, it's the disparities between Black and white women within childbirth, but also a lot of the research was just information that I found of how, something I already knew as a Black woman, but how Black and brown women don't have the access to resources and healthcare to help them, like with prenatal care, like taking prenatal pills, or making sure that they go to their visits to make sure that the baby is doing okay and make sure they're doing testing. So I want to have those types of services available in a facility that is based in a environment or community that is heavily Black and brown, right? So having that, to be able to have access to it without have to worry about travel, but also going to a place where like you can go there and people are gonna look like you and they're gonna understand you and they're gonna know where you come from and how to interact with you and make you feel safe, and make sure you get the best care, and also have like other language services, not like, oh, we have to use like a computer system or whatever to talk to you because we don't speak the language. Like, no, we're gonna have people that look like you who talk like you as well. So I think that would be pretty cool, and so that's my goal to make that type of services and type of facility. So that's why this type of topic is something that I'm passionate about, because again, like I said, I wrote a whole 60-page paper on it, even though, I was kicking and screaming about it. But once I got into it, it definitely is something that I want to talk about and I want to be involved in and fulfill that goal. But that kind of is another reason why I chose to, research this topic. So, like I said, I'm going to read off some notes and discuss it and go from there. And I definitely, if you feel like you have some opinions or you want to, ask me questions or anything, please feel free to, contact me on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, and we can talk about it because it's definitely a topic that is important, and I feel like it's not just about women knowing about it. Men should know it too, because I'm sure there's some woman in your life who could benefit from the services as well. So like I said, the episode is going to be called "Worry About Yourself. Abortion is None of Your Business," right? So I just thought about something before I even get into it. Some people might not know what abortion is. No judgment. So I'm going to give you the definition of abortion. Hold on one second. I want to make sure I give the correct definition. So abortion is the deliberate termination of a human pregnancy, most often performed during the first 28 weeks of pregnancy. Okay, so keep that in mind. All right, so here's my notes. So currently there is a draft of a majority opinion written by Justice Samuel Alito that would strike down Roe versus Wade, right? So Roe versus Wade was, for those who might not know, it was a landmark decision of the U.S. Supreme Court that ruled the Constitution of the U.S. would protect a pregnant woman's liberty to choose to have an abortion without excessive government restriction. This was decided January 22nd, 1973. Now, it was decided then, but it was originally proposed, and then they were against it and overturned, and then they finally came to the decision in January 22nd, 1973. So I actually wrote another paper about abortion laws during my grad school career. Not last semester, but 2 semesters ago. It just shows you it's something that I've been passionate about. Not necessarily abortion, but just women's health and maternity, maternal health. I'm very big on that. So if you, again, like I said, I gave you the information about Roe versus Wade if you're not familiar with it. And, don't just go off of what I read to you. Make sure you read up on it, because it's, like I said, it's an important topic that everyone should know about, not just for women. It's not just a woman's issue, right? So there were arguments of the role of morals and religious views in the political sphere regarding abortion and during the Roe versus Wade, right? So this decision involved, when it came to the Roe versus Wade, this whole thing started out because the decision involving the case of Norma McCorvey. She was known as Jane Roe within the court. That's how the Roe versus Wade. And Wade was... I definitely wrote a paper on this, so I should know. Roe versus Wade, I believe that was just against the opposing attorney. But hold on, I want to make sure I got the right info. Bear with me. Yeah, it was the opposing attorney. So, like I said, the decision involved that woman, Norma McCorvey, I think that's how you say it. But this was in 1969. She became pregnant with her third child, and she wanted an abortion, but she lived in Texas, where abortion was and still is illegal unless you have one for a necessity to save the mother's life. So her lawyers filed a lawsuit to the U.S. federal court that Texas's abortion laws were unconstitutional. And so it was, like I said, eventually passed in January 22nd, 1973, right? But it had like some stipulations to it, because they didn't just say, oh, you could just get an abortion whenever. It was like a certain time frame that you had to do. I believe it was like within three trimesters or something like that. But it was very early on. Like if you didn't, there was like a cutoff time. So, you know, and the issue with that is like, there's so many issues with that. The issue with that is like, who are you to tell someone what they can and can't do with their body? Also, when it comes to being pregnant, it's not as black and white as it seems. It could, you know, like, yes, we as women, you should pay attention to your body, right? But if you've never been pregnant before, you might not actually know that you're pregnant. That happens quite often. And you could go the first 3 months without knowing that you're pregnant, right? Because if you are, you know, someone who doesn't have regular periods, then if you miss a period or two, you might just be like, all right, it's no big deal, you know? So, and you can also get your period while you're pregnant. So it's not, like I said, if you think about it, you know, as a woman, this is for guys who might not understand how it could be like that. If you get your period, we've always been taught like, all right, your period equals you're not pregnant. So if you keep getting your period, why would you take a pregnancy test? I know I wouldn't. Like, I would be like, all right, I'm good. You know, like, I'm good for the month. You know, I'm not saying that, you know, like you should be gambling every month, but I'm just saying, like, you wouldn't, I'm sorry. Like, if I get my period, I'm the type of person, I hate getting my period, so I'm just going to be in misery, and not misery, but I'm just like, I'm ready for this to be over. I'm not thinking, oh, let me take a pregnancy test because I still could be pregnant, whether I'm sexually active or not. Like, you know, the period means you're not pregnant, you know? So, that my point to that is that a woman could get their period and not take the test because they're thinking they're not pregnant, but they could actually be pregnant. And then if based on the way that was in 1973, once you miss the mark, you can't get an abortion, right? And what if you didn't want to be pregnant and now you're past the time, and now you're kind of forced in a space where you're just going to have the baby, or you can go try to have an illegal abortion, which could lead to so much problems, right? Health problems, death, infection, all of these things, right? You can actually probably get arrested for that too. So that's what you have, right? So it was the Roe versus Wade was reevaluated in 1992 during the Planned Parenthood versus Casey case, where the court decided that a woman's right to choose to have an abortion is constitutionally protected, but it's protected, but they abandoned the original ruling that was in 1973 and put it in favor of a standard based on fetal viability and overruled the strict scrutiny for abortion, right? So they kind of basically expanded the rules to allow it to be a little bit more easier for a woman to get abortion. Still, to me, based on that research, it sounds like there were still some stipulations regarding it, but you could have an abortion, and it was a little bit more expanded, you know, as far as like what that falls under. And so fast forward to like May 2nd, 2022, there was a leaked draft from Justice Samuel Alito that was exposed, showing that the Supreme Court is prepared to overturn the Roe and Casey case with a pending final decision on Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. It's funny, I actually remember that Dobbs versus Jackson because that was a part of the paper that I wrote. But anyway, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization is a pending U.S. Supreme Court case about the constitutionality of a 2018 Mississippi state law that bans most abortion operations after the first 15 weeks of pregnancy. All right, so I'm going to give more facts, but I just kind of want to dissect what I just read. So basically what we have is like 1973, this lady wanted to get abortion. She lives in Texas. It's not possible there. I think what happened was she either tried to go to another state and then you couldn't do it because she wasn't a resident of the state. So that's why she was going against Texas, because, they weren't allowing her to do what she needs to do, what she felt she needs to do with her body. And then she technically wins, right? But then there's some stipulations with it. And then 1992, the same situation is brought again. And now they kind of extend it, but it's still, there's some stipulations with it. And now we have in 2022, everything is being reevaluated and potentially overturning all of it, right? To ban it completely. And so there's a lot of states that are gung-ho with that and all about trying to tell, women that basically you can't get an abortion at all, right? And so when it comes to getting an abortion, it's not necessarily, again, women's health, women's bodies, it's not black and white. It can't be, right? Because everybody has different situations, and getting an abortion, I feel like, at least when I was growing up, the idea behind it was it's always because of an unplanned pregnancy, and you just kind of you want to go get rid of the baby and then go on about your life. And that's not always the case. It could be, you might want to get an abortion because, maybe you just don't want the baby, right? Or maybe you have some health issues that are going to impact your baby or you and potentially could lead to death, because that's something that happens. There's different forms of pregnancies where if the fetus is outside of the uterus, I believe it's called an ectopic pregnancy, it could impact the baby and the mom could die, right? So that's why it could be an emergency abortion. That they don't call it an abortion in the hospital when they do the procedure, but basically essentially that's what it is, right? Saving the mom's life. And so it could be that, or it could be because you did get raped, and you got raped and you might have gotten pregnant from it. And it's just, it blows my mind how people can sit there and tell someone, you should keep the baby, or have the audacity to try to tell a woman that she's wrong for not wanting to keep the baby, especially in that instance, because that's so traumatic. It's two traumas on top of each other. And then you got some rando trying to tell you oh, you're wrong and you're a bad person, for doing what you feel is best for you. And that's just one form of it. There's so many reasons why a woman might want to get an abortion, but the point is mind your business. That's just the main point of it. Mind your business. You don't get to tell somebody what they need to do with their body. Worry about your own. Worry about yourself. Worry about yourself. That's my answer to it. Somebody's gonna ask me, oh, what do you think has whatever somebody else is doing? That don't got nothing to do with me. If she's not, we don't share the same vagina, we don't share the same uterus, so what does that have to do with me? If it just doesn't have anything to do with you. And the same thing for a man, especially a man. That's what's blowing my mind. These men who are trying to tell women, oh, you shouldn't have an abortion, you shouldn't just, I'm gonna say it quite often in the episode. Worry about yourself. If it's one thing people have, it's the audacity. How are you going to tell somebody what they should be doing with their body, right? If you don't approve of it, that's good. That's your problem. that's not going to stop the person from doing what they feel they need to do for their body. If a woman has an abortion, it does not impact you directly, at least your body directly. Now, if it's a situation where it's like, the guy is in a relationship with her, then that's a little bit different. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about strangers, like random people trying to tell other people what they should and shouldn't do with their body. That's just wrong out the gate to me. Like, this is all personal opinion. You can have whatever opinion you want. And just a sidebar, if you want to respond to this episode and, have healthy conversation, that's not a problem. But you're not gonna, I guess, I want to be nice about it. I said what I said, and I'm going to say what I say, and I'm going to feel what I feel, and that's just what it is. I'm not a feminist by any standard. I'm in support of Black women. I'm in support of Black people, and that's just what I do. I always want to support my people, and so I want to give the information that I can, and if it's going to help someone, and I'm always going to be in support of our people getting the best resources and care and stuff like that. So if a Black woman, old, young, whatever, feels like they need an abortion, do what you got to do. I would never turn my nose up on somebody doing that, because I don't know their life. I don't know what's going on. All I would want is for you to be safe. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what I would say, is just make sure you're being safe and make sure it's something that you really want to do. If it's the best, do what's best for you. That's just my opinion on that. So to get back to it, I said about the Dobbs versus Jackson, right? So in 2018, it was like a law in Mississippi. And so now they're basically just trying to, I'm sure, I don't know if you've heard, like there's like protests and stuff going on where people are just fighting against it. And fighting against this idea of not allowing women to have an abortion. And so currently there's 31 states that have introduced legislation banning abortion. There are 7 states that have passed at least one legislative chamber, including Arizona, Idaho, Wyoming, Florida, Kentucky, Oklahoma, and West Virginia. So that means that they've basically passed one legislative chamber to, ban abortion in those states. And then there are 30 states that are considering measures that would protect and expand access to an abortion. So there are 30 states that are for abortion, or when I say for abortion, like they're for protecting the right to have one, right? And so it's a heavy topic, and it's, in my opinion, not really, again, like I said, it's not, I don't understand the whole, like, what's the argument, because it's something that is a choice. If someone wants to do it, offer it, do it, and go on about your life. It has nothing to do with you directly, right? Because if a woman gets an abortion, that doesn't directly impact your actual life, at least your body. Like, a woman getting an abortion isn't going to impact my body. So it's not my opinion to be giving about what she does with her body, right? And so, not even just in the case of abortion, it's just a topic that's been for years, is like men trying to tell women what they should and shouldn't do with their bodies. And that's a topic that is heavily always discussed, I feel like, on podcasts and stuff nowadays, and just in social media and in entertainment, and just in the government, and everyday conversation. And I never will understand it. I never will understand why you are telling someone what they should and shouldn't do with their body, and especially as a woman. And I'm not saying that women, are higher or anything than men, but it's like, bro, do you know what it's like to have a period? No, you don't. Like, do you know what it's like to be pregnant? No, you don't. It's a lot. Like, the woman's body we go through a lot, and obviously everyone hasn't experienced pregnancy, but like, I mean, every woman has experienced a period, and that's not, everyone's period's different. And, you know, it's not an easy thing. And it's like, it's funny because I was thinking about that my last cycle. Like, I'm really on my cycle, but I'm at work. And that might be like, oh, what's the big deal? Let me explain. It's like, you understand that, like, when a woman is on her cycle, we are losing blood. So it's like her body is literally like, we're losing blood while still doing everyday, day-to-day things, you know? And we're supposed to just float along like everything is all set, and like we're not supposed to be, you know, when you're in pain because of cramps, and it's like, oh, you know, and again, it's not all guys, but like sometimes I know I've experienced that, where a guy will try to like downplay that, and it's like, if you've never experienced it yourself, it's none of your business. Worry about yourself, because it's like, you don't know what it's like firsthand, you know. It can be very painful. There are women who don't really experience bad pregnancies, or they don't experience like tough periods, but then there are women who really do, and like it is painful. And so I just think when it comes to those kind of topics, and about a woman's body and a man's body too, but we're talking about women, it's just in my opinion, it's best to just worry about yourself and mind your business, because you don't have to put yourself in a position where you have to defend something that can be defend an opinion that could be viewed as negative, because it can be viewed as negative. Telling someone that, you know, downplaying their feelings or downplaying what they're going through, it's not right. And, you know, we'll have to see, I guess, as time goes on, what's going to happen with this whole abortion thing. And now that document was leaked, and, you know, what the Supreme Court is trying to do with all that about overturning stuff and everything. We just have to, I guess, let things play out. But if you can, like, do your research and, you know, like I said earlier, do what you have to do, you know, like. And honestly, it's none of anybody's business. If you have an abortion, you don't need to go tell somebody. If you had an abortion, whether recently or years ago, whatever, and you start dating somebody, like, I don't know. Like, I just don't think it's not their business, you know? And if that's something that's going to be like a deal breaker for them, then let that be on them. Like, you know, like, you don't know what someone's gone through, and unless you're in that person's body, you can't tell them what's right and wrong regarding their health. I guess that's my main point. It's like, you can't I just don't think it's right. And I think that the fact that we're every few years or whatever discussing the same topic, it's very idiotic to me, because it's not changing. Like, a woman's body isn't going to change. Like, we're, you know, thank you, Eve. We always going to get a period. We're always going to be the only one. Well, maybe not always, because they're trying to do this whole thing where maybe men can have a baby. I don't know. But typically it's the woman having the baby, right? And so we have to go through those things. Our bodies have to go through those things. So it's like, that's not something that we can control. But since we are the ones who have to deal with it, why is it such a problem for some people, for some guys and some women too, of what a woman is doing with their body? Again, I reiterate, why does what I'm doing to my body, how is that impacting you? You can't give me an answer, because there isn't one. It doesn't impact you. Not directly. Again, like I said, it's different with relationships and stuff like that. But even that, you still have to, I feel like it all comes down to respecting other people and their bodies, respecting people's bodies, right? Because even if it was a situation where a man was with a woman, or whatever, there's a relationship and it's like, okay, the woman got pregnant and she doesn't want the baby, right? It doesn't have to be about rape or anything like that. It's just, I'm pregnant, I don't want a baby right now, or I don't want a baby with you, or whatever, right? And so I'm gonna get an abortion. It's not, the guy can be against it, but there's nothing that you really can do about that, because it's her body, right? Because she's going to be the one who has to carry the baby for 9 months or plus, and she's going to be the one who has to go through the delivery and all that stuff, and whatever that's going to do to her body, because everybody's different. So it's like, even if you're against it, you can't really tell somebody what they can and can't do with their body. I guess that's my point. Is like, the fact that we have to like go to the courts and let's discuss this and let's figure it out. Like, what are you figuring out? There's nothing to figure out. It's either, hey, this is a service that is necessary for whatever reason, give it to the women and go on about your life. It's really not that complicated to me, so I feel like when it's people like, oh, let's discuss this, let's right or wrong, it's about control, and it's about good old American fashion of trying to see how you can, shift the system to hold people back, right? Because when you're taking away this service and this ability to have abortion, then you're telling people that you have to have your baby no matter what, right? So you're causing trauma, because again, it could be, if it's rooted in rape, now you are traumatizing this woman to have to go through pregnancy and mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, have all this trauma that's going to impact the baby, which is going to come out. And that's a whole nother situation, because if she keeps the baby, she might mistreat the baby. And now you got an innocent baby being mistreated because the woman didn't have a choice to do what she wanted to do in the first place. And yes, it would suck if, she didn't have the baby, but that's her choice, right? Because of whatever reasoning it is. And so it's not for you to tell someone like, oh, you need to do this, right? And so I guess my point at the end of the day with this episode is do your research. And if women, if there's women in your life, tell them what's up, be there for them. You don't have to be like, hey, did you have an abortion? Have you ever had an abortion? Like, that's none of your business. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying be there to support someone with whatever it is they do. And if they want to share that with you, don't be judgmental, because that's something that probably is going to be like tough to share with someone, because it is such a touchy subject, not just because within society, but just for the woman herself. It's a trauma. You know what I mean? That's a heavy decision to make, and you can't go backwards on it. So, I guess my point with this episode is like, be supportive and do your research, and be there for the women in your life and other women, and let's just like stay in the know about what's going on with this and hope for the best, right? And I will try to share on my page. There's a video. I don't know if you've ever seen it before, but it's funny. This topic's not funny, but it's funny because the video is like this guy, he was at a rally, and the reporter, whatever, she's like, oh, she's like, so there's a difference between pro-life and like pro-abortion. So, right? Yeah. Pro-life is like basically those people who are like, oh, you shouldn't have an abortion, whether it be because of like a religious view or just a political view. And then there's also pro-abortion, so they support people having the ability to have an abortion. And so the guy is pro-abortion. The lady who's the reporter, she's pro-life. She's against it. And she's like, oh, trying to like argue or ask the guy like why he's out there. And so he's like trying to explain to her with an example. He's like, so if the woman is raped and whatever, you'll see when I post it. But so basically the lady, the woman who's against abortion, she like tried to like give him this answer that he didn't like. So he like does this like stance and he sticks his tongue out and then he kicks her. He does like a roundhouse kick. It's funny. To me, it's funny. So I'm gonna try to share that on the Instagram too, just so you can get a laugh. But at the end of the day, it's obviously a touchy subject, but that's life. Life is all about the ups and downs, and you gotta try to find the laugh and stuff. So I hope this episode was helpful. Like I said, if you want to talk about the topic, feel free to hit me up and we can definitely talk about it. Even if you want to be a guest and we can talk about it, that's fine too. But in conclusion, like I said, the episode, worry about yourself. I'm about to hit my maximum time, so I'm gonna be mindful of that. So I hope that this episode was helpful. Hope you learned a lot of information. Do your own research if you would like to. Stay in the know. And I just, this has off topic of this, but definitely talking about news, just that recent shooting within the grocery store, the black grocery store, where the white guy came in and just shot up those people. Definitely rest in peace to those people, and just be alert, man, because people are crazy, and this is just so much going on. And my advice is just be alert to what's going on where you live in your surroundings, and also be alert in society as far as like knowing what's going on. Everything isn't Instagram and Twitter or whatever, right? Because you can get information from there, but make sure you know what's going on, because these are the times when they do stuff, like when events like that happen, and then they distract you from this random law that was passed and how it's impacting your life. So pay attention. That's what my thing is. Just right now, is just pay attention. And I am your host, Chanel. This is Black Hippie Lounge. Thank you for listening. Please rate and review the podcast. Follow me on Instagram. Follow me on Twitter. Follow me on TikTok. All those apps, sites, whatever you want to call it, is the same name. It's at Black Hippie Lounge. BlackHippie Lounge. I don't know why I paused. I thought I misspelled it, but it's Black Hippie Lounge. And I hope you have a great rest of your Sunday. Hold on. Completely off topic, but I gotta see something real quick. I just wanna see what's the score. Okay. Anyway, Black Hippie Lounge. And like always, meditate, manifest, invest in you. Thank you for listening. Please share and take care of yourself, and worry about yourself. Meditate, manifest, invest in you. Join me on my spiritual journey as I elevate myself and like-minded listeners to a higher level, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thank you for listening. This is Black Hippie Lounge, and I am your host, Chanel.